The shy voice of a 12-year-old girl echoed through the grand lobby of the Continental Hotel. "May I play for food?" Her words cut through the elegant conversations like a sharp blade. Laughter and champagne chatter ceased. Guests turned to face the small black girl standing at the entrance, her large, hopeful eyes fixed on the gleaming Steinway grand piano beneath the crystal chandeliers. Her name was Amelia Washington. Dressed in simple, slightly baggy clothes, clutching a worn backpack to her chest as though it were a shield, she stood in striking contrast to the designer gowns and tailored suits around her. "How did that child even get in here?" whispered a platinum-haired woman clutching her glass. "Where's security?" It was a gala, meant to raise funds for underprivileged youth. Yet the irony was cruel. Amelia herself had spent the last week drifting between shelters. Earlier that day, she'd passed the hotel entrance, overheard talk of the event, and something inside her compelled her to slip in. Victoria Sterling, the organizer of the evening and heir to an old family fortune, noticed her. At 45, Victoria epitomized the city's elite. Educated, refined, and absolutely certain of her own superiority. She approached with a polite but icy smile. "Darling," she said condescendingly, "this is no place for you. There's a McDonald's 2 blocks away." "I just want to play," Amelia repeated, her voice firmer this time. "One song, in exchange for a plate of food." Ripples of laughter moved through the crowd. "She thinks she can play piano," scoffed a man in a navy suit. "She probably doesn't even know where Middle C is." "They watch a movie once and think they can do anything," added another woman with feigned pity. But Amelia didn't lower her gaze. She stood with quiet dignity, her posture strangely confident for a girl in her situation, as though she knew something the rest of them did not. Her fingers twitched unconsciously, moving along invisible keys, a habit she'd developed to calm herself in difficult moments. At the back of the hall, Dr. Robert Chun, a world-renowned pianist and judge, at national competitions observed. He noticed the way Amelia's eyes fixed on the piano, not with curiosity, but with reverence, recognition, familiarity. He stepped forward. "Victoria," he said gently, "perhaps we should let her play. After all, isn't this event meant to help talented youth?" Victoria laughed sharply. "Robert, please, look at her. Children like this don't have access to music education. It's impossible." What no one there knew was that Amelia had grown up in a home where music was as essential as breathing. Her grandmother, Betty Washington, had been a classical pianist, who never received the recognition she deserved, her brilliance denied by the color of her skin. She was Amelia's first and only teacher. When Betty died, Amelia was swept into the foster care system. She carried with her not only grief, but a talent she barely understood. Now, while guests mocked and whispered, Amelia stood steady. She had faced worse storms. Victoria Sterling, basking in attention, decided to turn the moment into a spectacle. She crossed her arms and smiled theatrically. "Very well, dear," she announced. "Since you insist, let's make a little deal. You may play, but with conditions." The crowd pressed closer, eager for entertainment. Victoria loved these moments, when she could flaunt her authority before her peers. First, she raised a manicured finger. "You will play only one song, and we will choose it. Second, if you manage to play decently, I'll pay for a full dinner. But," she paused dramatically, "when you fail, as we know you will, you must leave this place immediately and never disturb respectable people again." Some guests frowned at the cruelty, but their disapproval was drowned in laughter. Amelia's eyes stayed fixed on the piano. In her mind, her grandmother's voice returned. "When people try to belittle you, let the music speak. Music never lies." "It knows no prejudice. I accept," Amelia said clearly. Dr. Chun leaned forward, fascinated. In 30 years of judging pianists, he had learned to recognize true talent. Something about this child stirred his instincts. Perfect. Victoria clapped her hands. Now the music. She turned, scanning the room for the most humiliating choice. Her eyes settled on James Morrison, a bar pianist she knew. James, dear, what piece should our young prodigy attempt? James smirked. How about Beethoven's Fur-Elise? Everyone who's ever touched a piano tries it once. If she knows anything at all, she should manage. The suggestion drew chuckles. Fur-Elise was considered a beginner's piece among laymen, but to perform it flawlessly required technique, control, and years of practice. It was the perfect trap. Excellent choice, Victoria declared. A song every child learns in their first lessons. No excuses. Amelia nodded, walking toward the piano. Each step radiated a quiet determination that unsettled some at the back of the hall. A 12-year-old should not carry such composure in the face of ridicule. She sat, adjusting the bench with practiced precision. Dr. Chun's eyes widened. Those were not the movements of a beginner. Victoria sneered. Look at that! She doesn't even know how to sit properly. She's never touched a piano in her life. But Dr. Chun saw differently. The upright posture, the exact hand placement above the keys, these details took years to master. Amelia closed her eyes. Memories returned, her grandmother guiding her fingers, whispering lessons about truth in music. We're waiting. Victoria tapped her fingers. Or have you given up already? Amelia inhaled deeply, then lowered her hands. The first note rang out, pure, crystalline. It was not the hesitant sound of a child guessing at keys, but the confident strike of someone intimately familiar with the instrument. Heads turned in surprise. Dr. Chun stepped closer, his heart racing. That single note had been played with perfect attack, sustain, and tone, the hallmark of training, discipline, and soul. Victoria muttered, coincidence. But her voice trembled. Amelia began the melody of Fur-Elise. Each phrase flowed with clarity, no hesitation, no error. Her hands moved with grace and certainty, weaving emotion into every note. The hall fell silent. Waiters froze mid-stride. Champagne glasses hung motionless. Victoria shifted uneasily. This was not humiliation. This was something else entirely, as the melody deepened. Dr. Chun felt his breath quicken. What he was hearing defied logic. Amelia's playing carried the weight of hundreds of hours, of lived experience, of truth. The room's laughter had died. Now all that remained was awe. And in that moment, one question spread silently through the hall. Who was this girl? The melody of Fur-Elise floated through the Continental Hotel's grand hall, transforming the air itself. The audience, who just moments ago had mocked Amelia, now sat in rapt silence. Her small hands danced across the ivory keys with precision, every note ringing with a depth that betrayed her age. Each delicate rise and fall in the melody seemed to tell her own story, of hunger, of loss, of resilience. Dr. Robert Chun leaned closer, his chest tightening with awe. He had spent a lifetime listening to pianists, but there was something extraordinary here. This wasn't just a child playing. This was a soul pouring its truth into sound. A guest whispered, almost reverently, "She plays as if she feels the music." "Yes," another murmured, "not like those competition prodigies. This is real." At the center of it all sat Amelia, eyes closed, her world reduced to 88 keys and the memory of her grandmother's voice. Amelia, music is not about showing skill. It is about revealing who you are. Play with honesty, and the world will listen. Her grandmother's lessons guided each movement, and though she had only rehearsed on battered keyboards in shelters or school basements, the Steinway grand before, Hers seemed to welcome her as an old friend. When the piece ended, the final notes lingered like a prayer. For a heartbeat, silence filled the hall. Then, thunderous applause erupted. Guests rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even wiping tears. Amelia bowed her head slightly, not smiling, not seeking approval, only acknowledging the piano for allowing her to speak. But at the front, Victoria Sterling's face was pale. She forced a laugh, though her voice cracked. Well, that was amusing? Amusing, snapped a man near her. That was brilliant. The girl is gifted. Dr. Chun stepped forward, his tone ringing with authority. This child is no amateur. What we have witnessed is rare talent. In all my years of judging, I've only seen such depth a handful of times. Whispers surged through the crowd, admiration spreading like wildfire. Victoria, however, refused to lose face. One piece does not make her a musician. She probably memorized it from YouTube. Amelia looked up then, meeting Victoria's gaze. Her voice was steady. Choose another song. Gasps rippled through the audience. A child had just challenged the most powerful woman in the room. Victoria's jaw tightened. Very well, she said, venom dripping from each word. Let's see how long your luck lasts. She turned again to James Morrison. Something impossible. James smirked. Rachmaninoff, Prelude in C-sharp minor. The crowd buzzed. Even trained pianists often struggled with Rachmaninoff. It required immense technique, handspan, and emotional maturity. For a 12-year-old, it was near impossible. Perfect, Victoria declared. Play that, or admit defeat. Amelia walked back to the piano. Her fingers hovered above the keys. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from memory. She had played this piece before, in fragments, under her grandmother's guidance. She remembered her grandmother whispering, "Do not fear big music. Meet it head on. Your hands may be small, but your soul is not," she began. The heavy opening chords thundered through the hall, startling guests who had doubted her strength. Each chord landed with purpose, resonant and unshaken. The intensity built, her small body swaying with the rhythm, channeling passion far beyond her years. Gasps turned to stunned silence as Amelia attacked the piece with ferocity, then softened into passages of aching beauty. Her control, her dynamics, her emotional grasp, it was all there. Dr. Chun pressed a hand to his chest. He could hardly breathe. This was not talent alone. This was destiny. When the final crashing chords dissolved into quiet resolution, the audience exploded once more, cheering, clapping, shouting her name. Bravo! Incredible! She's a genius! For the first time, Amelia allowed herself the faintest smile, not pride, but relief. Victoria Sterling was furious. Her power, her authority, her carefully curated image, all shattered by a child. That's enough, she snapped, raising her voice above the applause. This circus is over. She's proven nothing. Get her out. But now the tide had turned. Guests murmured disapproval. Some booed at Victoria's cruelty. A woman in the front row stood up. You should be ashamed. That girl has more grace than all of us combined. Others nodded. Applause drowned Victoria's protests. Amelia rose from the bench and stepped back, not saying a word. She didn't need to. The music had spoken. Dr. Chun approached her gently. Child, what is your name? Amelia, she whispered. Amelia, he repeated softly as though committing it to memory. You have a gift the world needs to hear. Tell me, where do you live? Who teaches you? Amelia hesitated. No one. My grandma taught me. She's gone now. His eyes softened. Then I will teach you. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. The most respected pianist in the country had just offered mentorship to a homeless girl. Victoria sputtered. Robert, this is madness! You don't know where she comes from! I know enough, he replied firmly. I know greatness when I hear it. Amelia clutched her backpack tighter. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. The hall was buzzing, guests already discussing donations, scholarships, opportunities. The child who had entered begging for food was leaving with the promise of a future. Victoria Sterling, red-faced and humiliated, could only watch as her evening unraveled. The gala she had orchestrated to showcase her own influence had instead become the night a forgotten girl stole the spotlight. As Amelia walked toward the exit with Dr. Chun at her side, one thought filled her mind. Grandma. I kept the promise. I let the music speak. The night air outside the Continental Hotel was cool against Amelia's skin as she stepped out, her backpack slung tightly over her shoulder. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel invisible. Dr. Robert Chun walked beside her, his expression thoughtful. Amelia, he said gently, do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? She hesitated. The truth was hard to admit. Not really. Sometimes the shelter, sometimes nowhere. His heart tightened. That won't do. Come with me. I'll see to it that you have a place, food, and, most importantly, a piano. Her eyes widened. A piano? He smiled. Yes, you need one of your own. A musician cannot live without her instrument. They walked down the quiet streets, and Amelia felt as though she were floating. Just hours earlier she had been hungry, desperate, ignored. Now someone believed in her, someone powerful. The following week, Amelia found herself in a new world. Dr. Chun had arranged for her to stay with a kind foster couple who adored music. Their home smelled of coffee and books, and in the corner of the living room stood a gleaming upright piano. At first, Amelia approached it cautiously, almost afraid it would vanish like a dream. But when her fingers touched the keys, the familiar comfort returned. She practiced for hours each day, her small body hunched with determination, pouring everything into the instrument. Dr. Chun visited regularly. He was a strict teacher, demanding precision, discipline, and emotional depth. But Amelia never faltered. She absorbed every correction, every lesson, as though she were making up for lost years. One evening, after she had played Chopin's Nocturne with haunting beauty, Dr. Chun leaned back, deeply moved. You remind me of your grandmother, he whispered. Amelia's hands froze on the keys. You knew her? Yes, he said softly. Many years ago, I heard Betty Washington perform in a small church. She was remarkable, powerful, graceful. But the world was cruel, and she never received her due. When I heard you at the gala, it was as if I heard her spirit again. Tears filled Amelia's eyes. She always said music was her truth. She taught me everything I know. And now, he said firmly, it is your turn to carry that truth forward. Months passed, and Amelia's progress astonished everyone. She practiced tirelessly, often losing track of time, playing until her fingers ached. Her foster family would listen quietly, moved by the passion in her music. Word began to spread, first in local circles, then across the city. The story of the homeless girl who stunned the wealthy elite at the Continental became a topic in newspapers and online forums. Clips of her playing went viral, shared with captions like, "The prodigy who came from nothing." Offers followed. Scholarships, invitations to perform, interviews. Amelia remained humble, though inside she felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She had never been in the spotlight before. Dr. Chun guided her carefully. Do not let the noise distract you. Fame is fleeting. Focus only on the music. But he also knew the importance of opportunity. When the National Youth Piano Competition announced its annual contest, he entered Amelia's name. You're ready, he told her. Amelia's stomach churned. Competitions meant pressure, judgment, expectation. But she also knew this was the path her grandmother would have wanted. The day of the competition arrived. The grand auditorium buzzed with energy as families, teachers, and young pianists filled the seats. Amelia, dressed in a simple white dress, sat backstage, her hands trembling. Slightly, other contestants whispered and giggled, glancing at her. She caught fragments. "That's the girl from the shelter, isn't it? She doesn't even look like she belongs here. Bet she'll choke." The words stung, but Amelia closed her eyes, recalling her grandmother's voice. "Let the music speak, child. It will silence them all." When her name was called, she walked onto the stage. The spotlight was blinding, but she kept her gaze on the piano. She began with Chopin's Ballade No. 1, a piece of immense difficulty, demanding both technical mastery and emotional maturity. The opening chords echoed through the hall, steady and commanding. As the music unfolded, Amelia disappeared into it. Every rise and fall told her story. The hunger, the loneliness, the laughter of those who doubted her, the love of her grandmother, the hope she now carried. The audience leaned forward, captivated. Even seasoned judges exchanged glances of astonishment. By the final triumphant cascade of notes, the hall erupted in applause. Amelia stood, bowed quietly, and walked off stage with her heart racing. Backstage, Dr. Chun embraced her. "You played with truth. That is all that matters." When the winners were announced later that evening, Amelia's name rang out as the grand prize recipient. The hall thundered with applause as she stepped forward to receive her trophy. She held it carefully, almost in disbelief. For the first time in her life, she felt the world acknowledging what her grandmother had always told her. She mattered. But Amelia also knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Her journey had started with hunger, with the simple wish for food in exchange for a song. Now it was carrying her toward a future she could scarcely imagine. As she looked out at the cheering crowd, her heart whispered a promise. "I will keep playing. I will keep telling the truth." Amelia's victory at the National Youth Piano Competition marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life. Yet even as opportunities poured in, she remained grounded. She still practiced tirelessly, still walked with the quiet humility that had carried her through hardship. Dr. Chun watched her closely, careful not to let the sudden attention overwhelm her. He arranged her schedule, limited interviews, and reminded her daily, "The music comes first, always." Still, Amelia couldn't escape the changes around her. Newspapers ran headlines. From homeless to prodigy, the story of Amelia Washington. Viral videos of her performances gained millions of views. Strangers stopped her on the street to ask for photos. But in her heart, Amelia knew none of this compared to the private moments at the piano, when it was just her and the memory of her grandmother. Months later, an invitation arrived that both thrilled and terrified her, a chance to perform at the Metropolitan Concert Hall, one of the most prestigious stages in the country. It was to be a charity concert, raising funds for underprivileged children. The irony was not lost on Amelia. Just months before, she had been one of those children. When the evening came, the hall was filled with dignitaries, celebrities, musicians, and countless eager guests. Backstage, Amelia's hands trembled as she adjusted her dress. Dr. Chun placed a hand on her shoulder. "Remember," he said softly, "you are not here to impress them. You are here to tell your story." She nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the stage. The spotlight bathed her in gold as she approached the piano. The audience hushed. She sat, her fingers hovering above the keys, and then she began. The piece she had chosen was not one of the traditional grand concertos. Instead, she played a composition of her own, a piece inspired by her grandmother. It began with soft, hesitant notes, reflecting her childhood struggles. Gradually, the melody grew stronger, weaving in threads of sorrow, resilience, and hope. At its peak, the music soared, triumphant and defiant, before settling into a gentle, peaceful conclusion. The hall was utterly still when the final notes faded. Then the applause began, slow at first, then rising to a thunderous roar. People stood, clapping, cheering, some with tears streaming down their faces. Amelia bowed her head, overwhelmed. She had not just played music, she had shared her soul. After the concert, as she walked off stage, she noticed someone waiting in the shadows. Victoria Sterling, the same woman who had mocked her, humiliated her, tried to dismiss her. But now, Victoria's face was pale, her arrogance gone. Victoria's voice trembled. You've become remarkable. Amelia looked at her calmly. The music was always there. You just refused to hear it. Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came. For the first time, she seemed stripped of all power. Amelia didn't wait for her reply. She simply walked away, leaving Victoria to confront the silence of her own pride. In the years that followed, Amelia's career blossomed. She toured internationally, played in renowned halls, and inspired countless young musicians who saw in her a reflection of their own struggles. Yet through it all, she never forgot where she came from. She established a foundation in her grandmother's name, offering free music lessons and instruments to children from disadvantaged backgrounds. When asked why she devoted so much to others, her answer was always the same. Because someone once believed in me when no one else would. And because music is not meant to be hoarded, it's meant to be shared. One evening, years later, Amelia returned to the Continental Hotel, the very place where it all began. The lobby looked the same, chandeliers glittering, guests in elegant attire. But this time she was not a hungry child begging to play. She was the guest of honor. A grand piano had been placed in the center, waiting for her. As she sat before it, memories flooded back, the laughter, the humiliation, the first notes of Fur-Elise. She smiled faintly, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The audience listened in reverent silence, not just to the music, but to the story it carried. The story of a little girl who once asked only for food and instead found a future. When the final note rang out, Amelia looked up at the faces before her. They were not mocking, not dismissive. They were filled with respect. And in her heart, she knew her grandmother was proud. Amelia Washington's journey was not just about talent. It was about dignity, resilience, and the unshakable belief that truth will always rise, no matter how deeply the world tries to bury it. Her music had silenced arrogance, defeated prejudice, and inspired countless hearts. And it all began with a single, humble request: may I play for food? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful life stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments below.